Why does this fucking camera hate me so goddamn much? Anyways, back to what I was saying. Corey Feldman, like I said, tried to be friends with Erica Leniak, but she turned him down. So I know Corey Feldman nowadays is loony cuckoo and things like that, but I kind of feel bad for Corey Feldman because he was trying to be friends with Dennis Miller and Erica Leniak, but they acted like jerk offs to him, so that sucks. But it's a pretty interesting making up documentary, talking about the production problems and things like that. But I actually kind of like the Scream Factory artwork better than the theatrical poster. So I never, I mean, I like the artwork on this, like the new artwork better. So I keep it on this side, even though for most of them I do have the original cover arts, but I like the new Scream Factory artwork better. It's more colorful and more. You have Dennis Miller, Angie Everhart, you have Chris Sarandon, Corey Feldman on there, Erica Leniak. But it's still a fun ride, even though there are problems with the film. But I'll tell you what, the Blu-ray is worth getting for that making up documentary. It's a pretty interesting documentary. I think it's about like a 40-some minute making of where they talk about the problems, about how Dennis Miller was, and things like that. So you get some pretty interesting stories behind the scenes with that one. Next one here is the Blu-ray Steelbook of Beetlejuice right here. One of my personal favorite 80s movies of all time. It's my second favorite Michael Keaton film behind Batman. Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice is just off the charts. He's so fun, he's entertaining, he's energetic. Michael Keaton really brought this character, he made it his own character. And Michael Keaton, you can tell, just had a ball playing Beetlejuice. And I really do enjoy this film a lot. It's a really fun, entertaining. It's got a good mixture of comedy, horror, fantasy, you name it. Tim Burton did an excellent job directing this. The special effects in here are fantastic. And I really like you have like Winona Ryder, Alec Baldwin, Gina Davis. So a pretty good cast of people. But like I said, Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice just steals the show. Nice fucking model! Honk honk! Michael Keaton is just off the charts as Beetlejuice. An absolutely just mesmerizing performance. Next here is another Scream Factory Blu-ray. That is Bad Moon. Finally have this for the Scream Factory collection. Definitely, I would say, one of the more underrated werewolf films. And I really do enjoy this film a lot. It's a pretty unique, perspective on a werewolf film, where it's through the perspective of a dog, which I think is pretty interesting. And it's a pretty good cast as well. You have Mariel Hemingway, you have Michael Pare, you have Mason Gamble, Dennis the Menace himself. You also have a couple of other people in here, too. Directed by Eric Red, who I know did the original Hitcher, with C. Thomas Howell and Rutger Hauer. And this is a really good Blu-ray from Scream Factory. It's got the director's cut on here, a brand new commentary track with the director. You have brand new interviews with Eric Red, Michael Pare, Mason Gamble, Steve Johnson, who's the special makeup effects, and stunt coordinator Ken Kersinger. So, a lot of really good stuff on this Blu-ray. Next up here is The Exorcist on Blu-ray. I mean, what more can I say? I finally have my favorite horror film of all time on Blu-ray, so that's fantastic. And this extended director's cut actually has the 3-part documentary on the making of The Exorcist, which is nice. Next one here is a very underrated psychological horror film here, The Cell. Now, a good friend of mine on here, Lauren's collection, she actually mentioned in a comment most recently, where she commented on the Christmas gift video that I did. And she was talking about how The Cell kind of looked like an interesting film. And it definitely is. So, Lauren, if you're watching this, I'm going to explain in detail what this film is. Now, the story of the film, you have Jennifer Lopez, who's a child psychologist who has like this experiment where she can kind of go into a catatonic state and kind of go inside of a person's mind and like see their nightmares and visions and things like that. So her and her team are not really doing too well with the experiment, and at the same time you have a serial killer played by Vincent D'Onofrio, who Vincent D'Onofrio is a killer of these women he kidnaps women and kills them. There's a point where Vincent D'Onofrio kidnaps this one woman and she's missing. He always like puts them in this like water tank thing, and the water fills up so much, and then eventually the woman will drown. So his latest victim is missing, and apparently he has to take these pills, or else he'll go into a coma. And he forgets to take his pills, so now he's in a coma, and now the FBI doesn't know where his latest victim is at. And one of the FBI agents is actually Vince Vaughn. And Vince Vaughn and his FBI team get in contact with Jennifer Lopez and her team. And so Jennifer Lopez has to go inside of Vincent D'Onofrio's mind and try to figure out where this woman is before she dies. So it was like Jennifer Lopez delving into Vincent D'Onofrio's twisted mind, and then you get these creepy visuals, like Vincent D'Onofrio with that look, with kind of like these like snake things are coming out of his head, and that's pretty much what the experiment looks like when two people are lying next to one another. She can go into another person's mind. So that's pretty much the idea of The Cell. It's visually beautiful, really beautiful special effects. The cast does a really good job. Jennifer Lopez, Vince Vaughn, Vincent D'Onofrio. You have Jake Weber, who was one of the cops who was in the Dawn of the Dead remake. Dylan Baker, who was Dr. Connors in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films. He's one of the psychologists that Jennifer Lopez works with. So, really good cast. And it's a pretty unique idea for a psychological horror film, that's for sure. Next one here I got here is, of course, Casper on Blu-ray. Really fun film from my childhood that I've always loved growing up. Casper is a fantastic, really fantastic childhood film, favorite of mine. And it looks phenomenal on Blu-ray. It looks beautiful. Bill Pullman, Christina Ricci, Kathy Moriarty, Eric Idle. You also have the voices of Brad Garrett. Joe Alasky is as two of the ghosts, the three uncles. You also have fun cameos in here by Rodney Dangerfield, the Crypt Keeper, Mel Gibson, and because there's a point where Bill Pullman is looking in the mirror and he turns into all these different people. He turns into Clint Eastwood, Rodney Dangerfield, the Crypt Keeper, and Mel Gibson. Because I know Steven Spielberg was an executive producer, so that's why he was able to get like Clint Eastwood, Mel Gibson, and things like that. So, like I said, really fun movie. I've always loved Casper growing up. It still is a personal favorite of mine today. Okay, so what's the action we go to next? Let's do this one here. We'll do this one. There we are. So, next here is another Scream Factory Blu-ray. Lake Placid. Really fun creature feature film, crocodile film. About these people investigating like this crocodile, where they don't know what it is yet, but like you have Bill Pullman as a kind of like a guy for a fishing game. He's like a ranger, and you have Bridget Fonda as a I think she's an archaeologist or something like that. Oliver Platt plays a guy who's a crocodile expert, things like that. Directed by Steve Miner. It is the same guy that did Friday the 13th Part 2 and 3. He did a couple of other things too. I think he did the piece of shit Day of the Dead remake as well. But this is a really fun creature feature. It's a really fun crocodile movie. And, you know, Bill Pullman, I've always been a big fan of Bill Pullman. You know, Casper, of course, The Serpent and the Rainbow, Spaceballs. I mean, a ton of other stuff that I like Bill Pullman in. Bridget Fonda, Oliver Platt. I thought Oliver Platt was really fun in the movie. Betty White has a small role in this as well. So, I think it's a really fun movie, Lake Placid. Next one here is a triple feature for Steven Seagal. Above the Law, Under Siege, and Under Siege 2. Finally, I never even knew Steven Seagal films were even on Blu-ray, so I want to get a couple more eventually. So it was pretty cool to start my Blu-ray collection of Steven Seagal. Above the Law was his first one that he ever did. Fantastic. Henry Silva plays a great villain. Under Siege, classic. That's the one where he's Casey Ryback on the ship. He's a cook. And Gary Busey and Tommy Lee Jones take over. They're the two villains of the film. Another classic Seagal. Under Siege 2: Dark Territory is basically on a train, and I think it's a pretty underrated sequel. So, to have all these films on Blu-ray in one set is pretty nice, and I love the way that they designed it, where it's in a slip case, and I like how they're on their own separate disc. So you have Above the Law, and then Under Siege and Under Siege 2. So I like how they have their own disc, which I appreciate. They're not all like compressed into one disc. So awesome thing to have in my collection. Another one that I never even knew had a Blu-ray, so I figured I didn't even know this had a Blu-ray. Like I said, a lot of these gifts were from my buddy for Christmas. Well, these are the ones I'm talking about now that are from him. But The Whole Nine Yards. I say my favorite Bruce Willis comedy that he did, even though I really do like Death Becomes Her. I thought the dynamic between him and Matthew Perry was a lot of fun. You also have Natasha Henstridge. You have Amanda Peet. You have Kevin Pollak. You have Michael Clark Duncan. May he rest in peace. From The Green Mile and a lot of other movies. Daredevil. Whole Nine Yards, really fun comedy. Absolutely hysterical comedy. Another one here, Arrow Video Blu-ray release. Dead End Drive-In. I always thought this is like one of the more underrated horror films from the 80s. No, I'm sorry. Was this? No, the 90s. Sorry. Not the 80s, the 90s. So, I always thought this was a really fun movie. Pretty unique idea too, where there's this drive-in, and these people get trapped in there that are delinquents. Pretty interesting idea for a movie, that's for sure. And that new cover art's pretty nice. Next one here is another Scream Factory Blu-ray, The Legend of Hell House. Really, just a great, fantastic haunted house film with Roddy McDowall. I mean, it's not really one of those films I can spoil a whole lot. If you like, House on Haunted Hill, like that kind of like old school, like Vincent Price kind of like stuff, I definitely recommend you check this one out. This is from 1973. Another Arrow Video Blu-ray, RoboCop. Really glad to have this. Loaded with special features. The 4K scan of this is absolutely fantastic. Fantastic looking picture. What more can you say about RoboCop? It's easily one of the best action films of the 80s. And definitely one of the best films from the 80s, best action films from the 80s, one of the greatest action movies of all time. Another Arrow Video Blu-ray is Creepshow 2. Always enjoyed Creepshow 2. I always thought this was a fun movie as well. My favorite story is The Raft, and then my second favorite is actually Old Chief Woodenhead with the Indian statue that just scalps the guy. I always love that part. But I had this on a cheap DVD, and to have it on Blu-ray now from Arrow Video is great. And the last one I'll show here for this part is one from Vinegar Syndrome. Hell Comes to Frogtown. This is a really weird movie, but fun movie with Roddy Piper. So I'm going to stop here for this part, so I'll see you guys in the next part.